Let's talk about morning anxiety. Before we do, I want to introduce myself. I'm Lily Seiss, an anxiety coach, three principles practitioner, and I used to be a school psychologist. And I think more importantly, I used to be someone who was really anxious, and I struggled with anxiety and OCD and panic. And now I'm on the other side, and I help people have a different understanding of anxiety and panic and OCD, and more importantly, how to return to that place of mental well being. I work with a lot of people who, like me, tried so many things and found that they were innocently overcomplicating it. But let's get into morning anxiety. How I understand morning anxiety is it's increased worry, rumination, feelings of stress, often more physical symptoms. I notice a lot of people talked about feeling nauseous, sometimes vomiting, or even being on the lookout for those physical symptoms from the moment they wake up. And what makes it morning anxiety is it dissipates after the morning. So for everybody, almost everybody in my messages, I ask my Instagram community. Yes, I'm leaving that out. I have a wonderful Instagram community, and I ask them what their experience with morning anxiety has been like, or what it was like if now they don't experience it. And a lot of people, almost everybody, said that it dissipated by the time they got present, either at work or their family was up or their day went on. By 8, 9, or 10, it fell away. And one thing that you might know is that cortisol, the stress hormone, is highest in the mornings, and that's to get us going. And when some people understood that, that was really helpful. I'm going to talk about what people's experience is like with morning anxiety, what they found helpful, and then I'm going to answer some questions. And when I was also looking into some articles around morning anxiety, a lot of them talked about coffee and sugar and exercise, and all of that can be great, but I'm sharing something deeper, and I don't want us to overcomplicate it, because sometimes I was reading articles and it was like 8 things. The last thing we need is more to do. The last thing I needed was more to do. And a lot of people that work with me, we don't need more to do. We don't need more thinking. And that's why I invite you to listen with your heart. Give your intellect a break. Just listen as if you're open to hearing something new. I'm not going to give you a miracle morning. I'm not going to tell you to avoid coffee or avoid sugar or to exercise or to avoid exercise. I really just want you to listen. And I want you also to reflect and see what's true for you. Because if you feel like you feel great drinking coffee, or you know what, you've sometimes tried not drinking coffee and it actually didn't make a difference in your anxiety. That's just information. But if you find that when you drink coffee on an empty stomach, it actually just, you feel jittery, you have more intrusive thoughts, that's information too. That's what's true for me. I drink mostly decaf, and I drink it with a lot of milk, whole milk, and honestly some protein powder. I love to have coffee on an empty stomach, but I don't feel good to drink regular coffee. Sometimes I'm on vacation, I will drink regular coffee, but I limit it to just 1 cup, because I found for me, when I have 2 cups, I feel jittery and I feel a little bit like unsafe, even though I know I'm safe, but I just feel like, and I have more intrusive thoughts. So for me, that's easy. I got really caught up in trying to have the perfect morning routine. I'd get up before everybody and I would meditate. I had an altar. I would do affirmations. I would do restorative yoga. I would try to eat a very, very balanced diet way before I'd eat any coffee. I just did a lot. And it was because I was so scared of experiencing anxiety. I was so scared of panic. I was so scared. And none of that actually made a difference, because underneath it was this like resistance. And actually someone else in my messages had a similar comment, so I'm going to get there. So again, kind of in terms of exercise or sugar or journaling or anything, do what works for you. I don't want to overcomplicate it. The last thing we need is more things to do. If you notice for you that you feel great having a bowl of cereal, great. If you feel great having a cup of coffee and a donut, great. And if you notice, like, you know what, I actually hate breakfast. I just hate it. I love to drink tea. I put a bag of dry cereal and I go to work. Great. Same goes for exercise. Just really, I'd be curious rather than having a routine, because what I'm talking about goes deeper into understanding anxiety, understanding where your experience comes from. Okay, so some common things that I saw in people's comments. One was a noisy head. So I really love how Michael Neal talks about the universal diagnosis, like that all of our problems stem from this universal diagnosis: too much noise in head. How true is that? So simple. Anytime I don't feel good, yeah, sometimes it's a cold, but anytime I don't feel good, I know I just have too much noise in my head. I'm just shaken up. That's all it is. I don't need to go and think, oh, did I not get enough sleep? Is it something I ate? Did I drink alcohol last night? Is it too much coffee? Like blah, 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 blah. Like I don't need to analyze. I just kind of know, oh, I got a noisy head. And if there's something else, like, oh, I did drink 2 cups of coffee, I'll hear it. I'll know it. But a noisy head. So I'm going to read some people's comments or some people's messages. I'm not great at making schedules and routines, but I'm learning that if I don't have my order of events mapped out for my morning, getting out of bed is very hard. I get paralyzed by indecision and overwhelm about my day. And then I had asked them about weekends. And they said, yes, on weekends, a lot of it centers on whether I will work out, what workout I'll do, and whether it's a day I intend to wash my hair before work, plus whether my husband is home to help with our kids' routine. It feels like a lot of decisions to make. If he's home, I have more options, but then I also feel guilty for waking up early to exercise and either waking him up or missing out on snuggle time. He hasn't complained about that, but I still worry because anxiety is irrational. I'm such a people pleaser, perfectionist, that I also feel indecisive about getting up on weekends and doing whatever if I haven't communicated my intentions to my husband. I realize all it takes is communication, which I then do, but for some reason, worrying that my choices will mess up his plans is my default feeling when I first wake up. And my heart goes out to this person because I could have written this. And I know maybe for you, those things might seem small, but you think of it, all that noise, all that pressure, and it can honestly, like perfectionism and that judgmental thinking that we can have about ourselves, our brain interprets that as danger and it puts us in fight or flight. I was really in a very similar experience. All of those seemed so big. All this noise. Am I going to work out? Should I wake him up? Should I cuddle? Like, am I a bad wife if I don't cuddle? But wait, but shouldn't I exercise? I didn't even tell him. What if I get out of bed? It's just so much noise. And we just don't feel good. We can feel so shaken up, so shaken up. And again, no judgment, when we just see, oh, wow. Yeah, in our anxiety, that kind of personal thinking, it's like a loud brass band. It's urgent, it's judgmental, it's alarmist. And underneath that is our wisdom that's like this gentle flute. It's always there. And so when we can notice that, oh, there's my thinking, it's going. And I noticed that coming in, not anything to do with morning anxiety, but I kind of have a busy weekend. And as sometimes happens, as I'm recording this, it's December 3rd. So there are some parties, and a friend's going to be in town, and we were going to go to, another friend of ours is preaching at a church, and then go to brunch. But my daughter is ultimate frisbee. And then my son also wants to see his friends. And then also we were going to do Christmas decorations with another friend. And some of it can seem really big. I know, for some people it's like, what are you guys stressing about? About working out and washing hair and parties and stuff. But anytime I don't feel good, I know it's just that I've got a lot of noise in my head and that I'm taking life seriously. And it's just a little tap on the shoulder. It's an invitation to get present. So I did notice that I had some stress thinking about this weekend. And also on this point, because I'm divorced, I live with my lovely boyfriend. His kids are older. They're 21 and 18, and my kids are younger, 8 and 15. And today he's going to be with my son. They're good pals, and it's not a big deal, but I'm going out to my friend's party, and he's with my son. And then also, my friend's in town, and we're going to be going to church and then to brunch. And I can feel guilty. It can feel like danger, but I also don't really hop on that bus. I don't give that a lot of tension, because when I notice that I don't feel good, that just lets me know that I'm innocently misusing the gift of thought. So it can feel like I had a little bit of a bad feeling thinking about this weekend, and that's foreign to me. I used to very much live in that state, and I don't anymore for the past almost 5 years. So when I do, I notice it. And then I let it go. And I remember that life is too important to take seriously. Okay, but back to morning anxiety. Okay, somebody else messaged, my anxiety is worse as soon as I wake up. I open my eyes and my mind immediately goes to the dangers and fears I have involving my kids' health. I have the hardest time snapping out of this morning anxiety. It usually takes hours. The only thing that makes me feel better is distraction. I used to look forward to waking up alone because before the family and having coffee, but now I wake up and I can't wait for everyone to get up so there's noise. I'm not alone, and as soon as the sun comes up, I open the blinds. And I heard a lot of people talk about when they get distracted, they feel better. And I think distraction sometimes gets a bad rap, but when I think of distraction, I think of getting present. So when we're really lost in our head, and especially like whether it's late at night or super early morning, like our level of consciousness, our state of mind can be lower. It can feel so scary thinking about our kids' health or even, what's going to happen for the day. But then when our family wakes up or we begin work, we get distracted, which means we get present. We get out of our head. But so when we can notice that we can actually get present anytime, even when we're alone. And it just means just even dropping our thought, even just for a second, making room for something new to come in. So anytime we don't feel good, it's like a tap on the shoulder, a little call to get present, but there's no pressure. And when I say get present, it's not like you're like, okay, I gotta meditate, I gotta just sit here, I gotta immediately drop all my thoughts. Like it's not that big of a deal. And that's why I think when people say distracted, that might be kind of cool. Because when it's totally fine to be distracted, especially when we have an understanding. Distracted can be, oh, I started watching the news. The news, maybe it's not good, but maybe if it's like a fun news show. I started reading my book. I started making my kids lunches, or once my family got up. But if you also want to say, you know what, I do want to enjoy my coffee before my family gets up. I know when I get present, it might be you get present with a podcast. Or it just might mean that you let go of those thoughts because you know that you don't need to worry. It's safe not to think. We'll get into that a little bit more. Okay, another one. My anxiety is very high in the mornings, from the time I start to get ready until moments before my day starts. It goes away as soon as all my students are in the classroom and no one else is coming in. I have a high heart rate, headache, not wanting to get out of bed. I use YouTube as a distraction. I have low patience with my kids. And they want to know how to train my body not to go into an anxiety routine when I've done the same thing every morning for 15 years. It's as much of a routine as getting dressed and blow drying my hair. And I had asked this person about weekends and holidays, and she said on Saturday she does very little, no makeup, no hair, stay in PJs, and there's no rushing, and doesn't have any morning anxiety. And I wanted to ask that question, or I asked that question because her question was, how do I train my body not to go into an anxiety routine? And when I think about Saturday, I wonder, I don't think you probably trained yourself. It was just Saturday was a different routine. You realized, oh, or I don't know what you realized, but I'd be curious, oh, what was different? And it might be, I wish I could say the perfect thing for all of you. I really do. And what I want to say is just listen for an insight, whether you get it now, over the next few days or few weeks. I used to have a lot of morning anxiety, and a lot of it, I think, it would go away when my day started. Sometimes my anxiety just stayed there, but my anxiety definitely was higher in the morning. But I want to go back to this. I just think, oh wow, isn't that interesting? And when we can reflect, and we can go beyond that analyzing to our wisdom and common sense, reflecting, letting creativity come in. Oh, isn't that interesting? What does that mean that I don't have it on Saturday? And so then this person said, by Sunday, I have dread of the week ahead. Said holidays, I try to cram in as much as I can. So it's a different anxiety of not wanting to relax because I think I should be doing something. I actually cut my breaks short because anything beyond 4 weeks in the summer, I get anxiety of a new morning routine and my body can't adapt without worry. I want to point out here, and there's no judgment, but looking. of your waking hours, how many are spent in a quiet peace? And there's no judgment. So if we're thinking, okay, I'm up for around 16 hours. And if you're thinking not many of them are spent in a quiet peace, that's just letting you know. That's just information, you know. And so when I read that of the Sunday, the dread ahead, holidays, cramming as much as I can, I don't know if I feel much room for a quiet peace. And I'm saying that with love. And there's no judgment there, but like, what are you dreading? Do you like your work? You know, when this person shared that as soon as their day starts and their students are there, oh, it falls away. You know, and that sometimes it can be anxiety. It's just that irrational dread. But I think, you know, that I think I should be doing something. I'd look into that. I'd get curious. What does that mean? And sometimes we can get so in the habit of doing something and feeling like our worthiness depends on doing something that it can actually feel uncomfortable to relax and to rest. And that could be a whole other video. But we really do want to give ourselves time to be in that quiet peace. Whether it could be going on YouTube, but guilt-free. You're watching YouTube, guilt-free. And then you might get a little insight, ooh, those bananas were so ripe. I'm gonna make muffins, because underneath that you are knowing you deserve rest. You deserve chilling. You deserve a quiet peace. You don't need to always be doing something. And I mean, there's so many things that could come up. It could be, but I have 3 young children and I can't rest, and just kind of getting quiet. Oh, how could I bring in more relaxation? What would it look like to relax with my kids? What about your worthiness about relaxing? Because when our nervous system is settled for more of the time, we're more likely to have a more settled nervous system in the morning too. You know, so when we're looking at our waking hours too, and I could go in a lot more on this, but so then the person said work days, they have a running list of what I need to get done in my home and in my classroom, getting my daughters ready for school. And then they have these thoughts. So I'm going to have a trigger warning. There's some scary thoughts that can be common for parents, to maybe skip over if you're like, I'm not in the place. I don't want to hear scary thoughts right now. Skip to like 15 seconds from now. Okay, I lost my place. Is my oldest going to get shot today? Is my youngest going to catch an illness? So I distract myself with YouTube videos. They worry what their parent interactions are going to be like. Will I get sick today? They're recovering from long COVID. What lessons do I need to give? What makes me look least fat? What am I going to be comfortable in? All that noise. But I hear this wisdom and common sense, and I distract myself with YouTube videos. When we're watching YouTube, you're present. You know, you're paying less attention to those thoughts in your head. There's less thoughts in your head. And so that can let you know, oh, wait, I actually feel better when I'm present. And maybe that is available even without YouTube videos. Or also, there's nothing wrong with YouTube videos. Maybe you're like, I love watching YouTube videos, but maybe you do it guilt-free because you realize that then you can just let go of those thoughts that aren't really serving you. You know, that it's worry that takes us out of the present and lowers our spirits, you know. So we can notice, oh yeah, I got a lot of thoughts. I take them really seriously. They're not making me feel good. My head gets really noisy. So I kind of feel like I set it down when I set down YouTube. Okay, they said Saturday there's mostly pressure of what do I need to get done? Is my husband mad at me for staying in bed? Or is he making breakfast? Wow, I'm lazy. We should do something or go somewhere. I don't want to do anything. No judgment, but just when you can notice, oh, there's my brain. I do this because Amy Johnson has an analogy of those plastic wind-up teeth, and it's just our brain chatting, constantly sharing its opinion and narrating our experience. To our brain, sometimes it's like we're never good enough. You know, kind of to that other example of like, get up and work out. No, you're so lazy, or no, you're a bad wife, you should cuddle. Or now look at this. You should stay in bed. That will be great. Remember, Lily was saying you need to rest. And then it's like, wait, maybe I should help my husband with breakfast. Maybe we should do something. When we can kind of stop identifying with our thoughts, they can just chatter away. Chat. We don't have to do anything. You don't have to stop them. That was a huge insight for me to realize that one, I didn't need to pay that much attention to my thoughts. My thoughts are not that important. And that my thoughts flow all on their own. Not every thought is worthy of our time. And super cool, we don't need to do anything to get fresh new thoughts. Thoughts flow all on their own. So we can be thinking about illness, shootings, working out, washing hair, connecting with our partners. What are we going to do? Anything. And it can come and it can go. And when we can, the cure for too much thinking is just to drop our thought, even just for 1 second. And that makes room for something new, a better feeling thought. But it's not something that we have to work at. But it was life-changing for me when I realized that I was one thought away from a whole new experience. And sometimes people have talked about having this strange, weird feeling in their head, like this unpleasant sensation. I often get that. And, I'm not a doctor, so please, if you have some physical symptoms, go get them checked out. But sometimes my head would feel weird, and I think it was just because it was so noisy. Or sometimes, who knows, it was stressful thinking. I needed to drink some water, but we can, our brain can say all these things. Okay. Another common thing that I noticed was checking. 100% guilty of this, but it's nothing to feel guilty about. But in the morning, I definitely would kind of unconsciously do a big scan to see how I was feeling. Were my physical symptoms there? One of my most hated physical symptoms that lasted a long time was, I called it my breathing thing. You can tell I have a really great way with words. A joke. It was just, I said my breathing. So I would unintentionally hold my breath. And then I would get in this habit of literally not knowing how to breathe. I think I have another video on that one, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I did more. I thought I need to do square breathing and alternate nostril breathing, and I'd go to breathwork classes, and I did a lot. But the moment I'd wake up, I'd see how I was breathing. And for me, it would linger for 3 weeks at a time, and my chest would ache. So I would wake up, check my breathing, and then I'd also just kind of do a scan of how am I feeling. I had a big fear of insanity, so I'd kind of be is any insanity lurking? I'd try to also fortune tell, do I think I'm gonna have a panic attack? There was just so much thinking the moment I got out of bed. I thought how I felt in the morning kind of would determine my day. Sometimes with anxiety, I often just felt under the weather too, and it would just get everything going because I'd be oh no, am I getting sick? What if I go to work and I get sick and then I get everybody else sick and then they're mad at me? But what if I get sick and then I feel too sick and I can't drive home? I had a really big issue with driving anxiety. And then I would think, well, I don't want to call out because I was talked about my absences. It was also because my son had a lot of health issues, so that was primarily why. But I would get in my head, is this anxiety? But am I really ill? And should I catch it early? Just such a noisy head. I also had a very long morning routine, as I said. Okay, but I'm going to read other people's comments around checking. I notice my anxiety gets better as the day goes on. In the morning, I find myself checking for anxiety symptoms, which causes the morning anxiety. Great insight. Waking up in a panic mode every day is common for me, immediately having to check my body and how I feel. Maybe it's because I'm unable to be hypervigilant while I sleep. I feel the need to make up for it when I'm awake. I just want to highlight that one. Wow, what an insight. When we can think that being hypervigilant is necessary and that keeps us safe. I was 100% there too. So there is no judgment. I thought that being hypervigilant would help me not lose my mind, would help me not have a panic attack, would help me not get sick or maybe catch a sickness early or keep everybody safe. But what I have come to know, and I realized about 4 years ago, was that being hypervigilant kept my body in fight or flight. It kept me anxious. It kept revving it up. That was cortisol was going, adrenaline. It was not a smart strategy. It was a bad habit. But no judgment. But I saw that for myself. So don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for anything. Okay, somebody else said morning anxiety has shown back up a bit. Not like before, but still back up a bit. As soon as my alarm goes off, my heart will speed up, and I start to check if I'm still having the physical symptoms. Mostly head-related, thick pressure feeling, and the off feeling out of body. then of course I feel it. And when I read that last bit, and then of course I feel it, I think we have these physical symptoms, our brain just makes up a story to, oh no, here it is again. It's anxiety. And then we're feeling our thinking even more. Something that came for me when I heard alarm is sometimes like if I'm have some more stressful thinking and then my alarm goes off, it can kind of startle me more. And I'm curious, again, just kind of reflecting, can you set a different tone for your alarm? And again, what I'm talking about is deeper than that, but sometimes I can notice, oh, I did not like the sound of that alarm. Okay, another common thing that I noticed is anticipating, thinking that it's always going to be there. So what I want to pose is you let the past be in the past. Even if you've experienced morning anxiety for years and years, let tomorrow be fresh and new. Don't think it's always going to be there. Be open to having an insight that can change you from the inside out. So when you go to sleep tonight, as much as you can think, this could be it. It changed. Because sometimes people just get in this habit and they just think it's always going to be there. What if it's not? I don't have morning anxiety. And sometimes when I've had it, I'll save that. I'm going to go on and I'm going to read other people's comments that I felt like kind of related to anticipating. Every morning is hell because of my anxiety. I dread and put off going to bed at night because I know how awful I'm going to feel when I wake up. I want to say to this, what if that's that self-fulfilling prophecy? What if you could go to bed at night looking to see something new with anxiety, letting each experience be fresh and new? And again, there's no judgment. I'm just trying to be helpful and to really let the past be in the past, and maybe to say until now. Until now, I experience morning anxiety. Until now leaves room for hope. Human beings are built for transformation. We really are. So this person also went on to say, I only feel better once I've had a good meal or two and am sufficiently distracted by something enjoyable. Again, there's that distraction. They're getting present. They're in their life rather than in their head. And so what if you just know that? Okay. What if it's okay to feel a little anxious? And then I know eventually I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to get present. It's going to go away. So they said, as a college student, I wish there was another solution because sometimes I can't get myself to go to class and I'm fearful of post-grad when I don't have that option. So I see that a lot of thinking outside the moment is totally understandable. And but it's so much future thinking and it can be that worry that lowers our spirit. So again, just an invitation to stay present. Let each moment, each day be fresh and new, and you're still just a college student. And your experience post-grad can be so different, so fabulous. Somebody else said, morning anxiety has been so bad recently. It comes and goes. Not sure how to break the pattern for good. I also deal with OCD that I think relates to the morning anxiety. And I asked them why, and they said, I think it's because when I have a full day of intrusive thoughts, I anticipate the thoughts showing up again first thing in the morning. So I think that's what I get anxious about. And again, that's that anticipation. I heard a lot of people talk about dreading intrusive thoughts. So a lot of people, it's when they've been really struggling with intrusive thoughts and then they just dread them coming in the morning. I've also felt like that's been true, or I've read it from people that experience derealization or panic. It's that anticipation of it coming and like, ooh. So if that is what you're experiencing, I have wonderful resources. I have an Intrusive Thoughts Masterclass, an Intrusive Thoughts workshop recording. I also have a whole masterclass on physical symptoms, on panic attacks, and masterclass on derealization and a derealization workshop. So having an understanding about those can really just be life-changing. And so I think that can be great. Somebody said, one thing I can say about morning anxiety is it's more of a habit you get yourself stuck in. You anticipate feeling it, and so you do. I spent months glued to my bed until I started waking up crying every morning because I wanted to change. So I changed my thoughts as often as I could, like my life depended on it, until it went away. You replace the old habit with a new one. And I really want to say that sounds really powerful, that they reached such a low point that they were like, I am changing this. I am not designed to suffer. And, we can't control our thoughts. We don't need to. But when I changed my thoughts, it seems like, all right, I let go of the unhelpful ones. I made room for ones that felt better, like my life depended on it. And then it went away. When I hear replaced an old habit with a new one, neuroplasticity. Our brain we can create new neural pathways. So I love that one. Hope. All right, another common thing that I felt like people were saying was that it ebbs and flows. Somebody said it ebbs and flows depending on my life. It is typically a predictor of stress levels in my life. Really want to highlight that. So if you notice morning anxiety, maybe you reflect and maybe it's like, yeah, I've been really stressed. I've been working really hard at work, or got a new baby. And because when you realize that, it can take away some of the guesswork of like, why do I have morning anxiety? It can be, oh yeah, have got a lot of stressful thinking. And when you go to that more reflecting place, that leaves room for creativity, for wisdom and common sense to shine through of ways that might help the stress levels. And maybe it's just that you don't have to take it all so seriously. Some people, they did talk about that it was there more during the week or more on a Monday. Okay, so going into what people have found helpful. A lot of people talked about getting out of bed and distracting themselves. And I've already said this, but what I see about distraction is it's getting present. So I don't think there's anything wrong with distraction, but when we realize all it is you're getting present. You're out of your head. You're not like there, you're just engaged with something. Somebody said, this all of a sudden started happening to me out of nowhere after my miscarriage. Every day I wake up and it's like an instant adrenaline rush. So there's that cortisol. My heart is immediately beating over 100 beats per minute the moment I open my eyes, and my stomach is in knots. I really don't know why particularly. It diminishes after a few hours once I get to work and distract myself, but I don't know why it happens or how to stop. And I want to take a moment and send you so much love for having a miscarriage. And I wonder though if when you notice that it happened after that, if that was maybe a really stressful event and maybe your thinking started to ramp up and your stress levels ramped up. So maybe it's, and I would wonder if you could reflect on that and see what comes up about that. Maybe if it would be helpful to talk to somebody or to go to a group, or I don't know, to reflect in what comes up around that. Maybe there is some peace to be made or some healing or something to see there. Somebody said, okay, so the next common thing was I felt like when people had an understanding, it changed the morning anxiety. So they said my morning anxiety got better the more I understood it. I know cortisol levels are highest in the morning, and the quicker I get up, do a little stretching, eat something, and get moving, the quicker my anxiety goes away. I used to have debilitating nausea in the morning from my anxiety, and I would keep some saltine on my nightstand and eat 2 right when I woke up to help that. The less power I gave the anxiety, the quicker it left me. Love that. And that is perfectly true for that person. I feel like that was a personalized plan. The more they understood it, the more they had a morning that worked for them. So you can experiment. My friend Sam would say to put on your white lab coat. And I feel like that's what the person did. They had an understanding about cortisol, so they didn't give it too much thinking if they felt a little bit more energetic or anxious. They felt like they found that it was great to get up, eat something, and then look at that, the saltines near the bed. My mom found that out for when she was pregnant. She'd get really nauseous, and she found like if she needed to eat something before she even just sat up and got out of bed. So I just want to invite you all to reflect and be curious and see what comes through for you. Somebody said, I feel extra sensitive, and this feeling of sudden danger makes it especially hard to get out of bed because it feels like it's unsafe to go into the world. It's also more prominent if I had a bad dream. Sometimes it can feel like an ambush, like my brain needs to warm up before I can tell myself that I don't need to take this feeling seriously. But in the morning, I haven't had the chance to warm up. Usually when I start my day and leave the house, it disappears again. So I think just knowing, oh wow, when I start my day, but I'm wondering what you see when you realize that it's just your brain hasn't warmed up. And I wonder even just noticing that. But if you think, oh, what would it look like to warm my brain up? Could I have a slower morning? And somebody else actually talks about that. I think I kept it in here, but they talked about they found they got up like an hour or two earlier and they just went to walk. And so I'm not saying you have to do that again. It's not about just like adopting someone else's routine, but getting curious, reflecting. See, because it's our wisdom and creativity. It's the wisdom that grew you, grew me, grew my babies, is responsible for the planets, for zebras. Like any problem that we've got is no match for it. So we can let that come through. It's like so much creativity. Somebody was talking about nausea and vomiting. And they didn't know what it was. And then they would just let it pass. They said, when I realized it was anxiety, I would get anxious trying to prevent it. I would happen most when I was stressed or thinking a lot at night. Great insights. I'm learning to accept it and let it pass, which has helped make it less of a big deal and lets me have a good day afterwards. Now I see it as an innocent response mechanism. Yeah. And that's what it is too. And then when we can see that we just sometimes have an innocent overreaction. But when we can know, oh, sometimes just having an anxious morning doesn't mean we're going to have an anxious day. We can have a great day afterwards. Somebody said, it decreased a lot when I started acknowledging that I need transition time. I wake up an extra hour early to have a slow morning now. Wow, really wonderful. And that's what, like when we can just reflect and see, oh yeah, I do great with a slow morning. Somebody said that coffee, no breakfast, meds on an empty stomach, and forgetting to drink water makes it worse. Who would have thought? And I just love that when you can put on your white lab coat. Sometimes it's so simple. Somebody said, I used to experience morning anxiety all the time till I learned about how we naturally have adrenaline in the morning to get us going. So I stopped thinking so much about it and understood that I needed the boost to help to get my day going. I don't consider myself having morning anxiety anymore. And that's huge. I don't consider myself to have morning anxiety anymore. Okay, somebody else said, I still have it, but I know it's cortisol. I try to jump out of bed and get going so I don't have to linger with the feeling. Again, wonderful. And just realizing that, and I wanted to share all the different ones. Somebody said, my experience is that it's always going to be there. It's one of the couple things about generalized anxiety disorder I've been able to recognize as a more chronic symptom, and it honestly comes and goes, depending on a lot of external stressors and internal ones as well. And I want to point out that I feel like they made peace that, all right, morning anxiety might be a part of their life, but they're also saying, you know what, it does come and go, depending on some things. So they said, for example, my antidepressants make it 10 times easier for me to experience it. They also have some external practices and helpers. They have anxiety. They have dogs that are trained to put deep pressure on them when it happens, helps them breathe slower and lower their heart rate and get out of bed. They said urgency is also helpful in getting out of bed no matter the state of my anxiety, like the fact that I drank lots of water last night and now I need to go use the bathroom. So they found that these external helpers really help them. I love how we can just experiment, see, no judgment, just information. What helps? Somebody said, I've suffered from morning anxiety that turned to morning panic attacks for the last 6 months. I'm in an intense program now that is opening my eyes to what is anxiety and panic. I realized for me it was too much adrenaline right when I wake up. I set my alarm for before the sun rises and walk. I know this seems so simple, but it has made a huge difference in my morning anxiety panic attacks. And I love that. Just allow yourself to be curious and to see. Yes, I remember dreading every morning. The brand new day strikes me as another day that I will have to battle with my mind. Before I opened my eyes, thoughts would flood and the terror it brought would paralyze me. The good news is that I overcame it and now I don't dread it anymore. If I can do it, so can you. And that was from someone. I just love that. And I wish we could hear more about what was helpful, what insights you had. I just want to give you hope, though. Somebody else said, this was a major one for me. I had a major insight one morning. I felt it rush up, and my first thought was, what if it was completely okay to stay here? I did nothing to try and make myself feel better. Just like that, it went away. Or maybe more to the point, I stopped noticing it if it showed up. It's been years since I remembered being bothered by that feeling. I knew the whole thing about cortisol levels in the morning, but nothing really changed until it truly didn't matter either way. Then everything changed. Resistance was the only thing holding it in place. And this is, and I know this person who wrote it, and this is very, very true of my experience. This would sum up kind of my philosophy, this feeling of what if it was completely okay to be here? I don't need to do anything to make myself feel better. And it was really when I too dropped the resistance, everything changed. I just love that. I love all the stories. I love hearing the different things because there's so many roads to healing. Other people did talk about cognitive behavioral therapy being helpful, light therapy being helpful. For some people, they found breathing exercises helpful. I wasn't reading those so much because I felt like for me, they overcomplicated it, and a lot of people that I've worked with. But there are so many roads to healing. And when we can be curious, there's no right way. There's like, oh, if we can realize, oh, you know what? Yeah, when I woke up and I did breathing exercises, I felt great. Yay. Yay. I don't want you to take my word for anything. I want you to see what's true for yourself. Could it be something like that? Or maybe it is actually something tangible, getting up early, going for a walk. But what we are talking about is something deeper, is this understanding of anxiety. That anxiety is just this large, swirling, frantic thoughts and the feelings that come with it. And it gets stuck there by trying to get rid of it. It's that resistance and thinking, like, and feeling like anxiety is front page news, like it's important, like these physical symptoms mean something, or we need to stay on top of it, and all these what ifs, all this future thinking. So that could be a whole other topic in terms of when we raise our well-being, we stop being frantic, we stop getting shaken up, we stop trying so hard, we stop resisting, everything settles. And as a result, the morning anxiety can fall away. So I didn't do anything specific to fix my morning anxiety. It just naturally fell away. I did have an insight that I kind of made peace that it was fine that my breathing thing was going to be there. Like, what if I just stopped checking? So I stopped checking that. I stopped my morning routine pretty early on too, because I realized I just was curious. I felt like all my morning routine was maybe just innocently overcomplicating it. I didn't need to what if about panic attacks because my wisdom got me through every panic attack. So I had a lot of insights, and I just naturally kind of, my mind quieted. My morning anxiety fell away. But sometimes I have had, sometimes I've had periods where I'll feel more anxious, like in the car driving my daughter. And I felt like for me, I realized that I'd be thinking about work and then I'd feel trapped in the car because I'd feel like I had so many thoughts, and it felt unpleasant to just be or it felt unsafe to just have to sit and be trapped in the car. I wasn't really trapped. But I remember when I experienced that, maybe it was last year, just kind of being curious and just noticing and thinking, and for me, underneath that was that I was taking things too seriously, which sometimes I can do. I can take work too seriously, and I don't experience that anymore. I don't know. I made peace with driving and being stuck, and sometimes I sure might be thinking about my day. I'll try to think more if I had any insights around that. I don't even know if I would call morning anxiety, but I definitely felt I had more thinking in the morning, for a period last year, and I felt a little uncomfortable driving my daughter to school. But I didn't, there wasn't anything I did specifically. I knew for me it was just too much noise and taking my life too seriously, which is something I can do sometimes. Some questions. And I know there was questions in the other messages that I got, but I wanted to kind of end on these questions, these messages that I received. So somebody said, often I feel an urgency to eat in order to prevent getting shaky in the morning. How do I restore confidence in my body? And I asked this person what areas she is confident in, and she said it's a work in progress. I didn't feel safe in my body after my first panic attack, but learning it's actually a defense mechanism was a game changer. But now often my thoughts are, oh no, I'm hungry. Oh no, I'm sick. How is my nervous system going to handle this? So I'm working on reframing those thoughts into my body can handle this. And I can really relate. I definitely did feel like I was super scared about feeling off in any way, of feeling sick or hungry. So that is something that's very close to my heart. And sometimes I still don't like to be hungry. It can feel shaky and can mimic that like adrenaline rush. But I do have that deep knowing that my body can handle it. I can handle being hungry. And I still honestly don't let myself, most of the time, get to that point just because it's unpleasant for me. But I do know that my body can handle it. So I really liked that that was in there. And I think when she had said, "How do I restore confidence in my body?" I think you're probably doing it every day. When that sentence, "My body can handle this," when you know it, when it moves from here of something that you're just saying to something that you're knowing, and you've seen that your body and your mind can handle you being hungry or sick, and that is where we start embracing the thing that's actually doing life, where it's not our brain. Our brain is so great, but we don't need to have a plan if we're sick or if we're hungry, or if anything, our wisdom and common sense will guide us through it. And let me think if anything else comes up about how to restore confidence in my body. I really think it's when we stop listening to that like chatting brain. We stop taking our thoughts so seriously. We realize that not all thoughts are worthy of our time, and then we can just experiment. I've had a headache, honestly, like all day. And before, sometimes that would freak me out. And I'm still thinking of it because I still have like more of the day to do. I'm having people over in the afternoon, then also in the evening. And I just see, because I've done it again and again and again. Well, not living with a headache, but life. I haven't feared my experience. So how do you restore confidence in your body? I think it sounds like you're doing a really wonderful job. It's a work in progress, as this person wrote, and to know that when we accept something, even if we don't like it, we move through it with much more ease and much faster. And so then we can know that uncomfortable doesn't mean unsafe. And we can more just not add on to it with our thinking. And that means that we don't rev up our nervous system even more. That we are so resilient, we are so strong, and we can more just listen to that gentle flute wisdom rather than that loud brass band of anxiety. And this was a similar, I think you'll see this next one said, "I find on most mornings, my anxiety has made it where I have to make sure I do all my coping mechanisms before going out in the world. I don't like that I can't be as flexible in the mornings as other times of the day to experience things. So my question is, how can I build up the confidence to wake up and go straight into the world instead of needing the same routine every morning to cope with anxiety?" And I wanted to highlight this question because I wanted to highlight how healing doesn't have to look one way, and you know you best. So please don't take my advice, don't take anybody else's advice. There was a lot of people in my messages who really felt comforted by having a routine. And then there's a person like this who's like, okay, I actually want more freedom and more flexibility. I don't want to feel bound into this routine. Everything is valid. Nothing is right, nothing is wrong, nothing is good or bad. But I think that is actually a wonderful place where you're realizing, okay, you did some coping mechanisms and that was really helpful. And now it's maybe more you're in this habit and you're like, I don't feel like I need this. You want to be more flexible. And I would reflect on this for you, because I can say what comes up for me, but I would wonder if you didn't go to analyzing, you went to reflecting. So you just put this out there to that wise part of you, your wisdom and your common sense, where that is just a thought. I have to make sure I do all my coping mechanisms. That's just a thought. Your brain's saying you got to do it, because it's probably like our lizard brain, which is the most primitive part of our brain, and it's the one that's responsible for habit. So you've gotten in habit of doing this routine, these coping strategies, and when you don't, it can feel really uncomfortable. Your lizard brain's like, but our lizard brain is all bark and no bite. So if you realize that there are some things that you just want to drop off of your routine, cool. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but again, it's the lizard brain. It's all bark, no bite. That uncomfortable feeling can come and it can go. And actually, how we change habits is with insights. So insights changes from the inside out. And when I think of this, when I think of coping mechanisms, are they things that are like self-soothing? You know, and when you said, how do I build up confidence to wake up and go straight into the world? You can try it. Or are there things in your morning routine that you like that feel good? I don't know if I want to wake up and just run outside. So are there things that are coping mechanisms? No, but I like to wake up. I do look at my phone a little bit, and I like to drink coffee. And I usually do like to eat something, or at least bring food in the car before I go out. So I don't really put too much thought into my morning routine, but that's what it looks like. I don't know if I'd want to wake up, unless one time I was moving and I did wake up. I don't think I even drank any coffee, but I really wanted to do like one run with all the stuff at 5 in the morning. So I did just wake up and straight on drive. I used to have a very long morning routine, as I said, a lot of coping mechanisms. I would get up early and I think I already told you, so I don't need to go into that. But I'm trying to think how I stopped. I just was curious. When I first started learning about the 3 principles, which is what I base my coaching on, and I have a course that I share so much. I share about the principles, which are just simple truths to just simple ways that we work as human beings, about our psychological functioning, about how everything works. So I go into that, so much about physical symptoms, panic attacks. And somebody actually in my course, we do group coaching too, she said, can you make a video on morning anxiety? So that's why I actually started investigating and putting this all together. But if you are interested, the course is really wonderful. Cover, as I said, all those things, and then health anxiety, death anxiety, relationships, moods, super extensive in terms of intrusive thoughts, transformation, healing, setbacks. So it's really great. I invite you to check it out. And also right now there is group coaching. So we have it in December. We're going to have it again in January. Wherever your time zone is, it should work. I tried to do it for, being in California and also supporting people in the UK and Australia. Okay, but back to this. I think I was saying experimenting. How we, to me, I think if I wonder if you all reflecting, how have you built up confidence in the past? And sometimes it's just doing it. And for me, yeah, I'm trying to think how my morning routine dropped away. I just was kind of curious. And when I found the 3 principles, I saw for me that everything that I was doing, or a lot that I was doing, I think I saw that maybe it was unnecessary, and I got curious. And maybe for me, and this is my experience, that it was actually unhelpful, because everything that I was doing was with resistance too. It was like I was doing this routine because I did not want to feel anxiety. I didn't want to feel off. And I thought if I had the perfect morning routine, I wouldn't feel off. I wouldn't feel panicky. And then I realized that my wisdom and common sense got me through every panic attack. And I realized that I could handle feeling off, and then I wouldn't feel off for too long. And that feeling off didn't mean I was losing my mind. So I had all of these insights. And so for this person asking this, when you can understand where your experience is coming from, understand that you are never stuck, because our thoughts are flowing. They're transient by nature. And then we're always living in a thought-created reality. We have our thoughts, they get brought to life. But oftentimes we're not like feeling our reality. When we're anxious, we're feeling our thinking. And that's really great because our thoughts are transient. So then you can know, wow, I'm never stuck. And you can start to see that there's that calm, that there's that part of you that's untouched. And Sid Banks, who's the founder of the 3 principles, he said that if the only thing somebody learned was not to fear their experience, that alone would change the world. So to both of these questions in terms of confidence, I would get curious, you could experiment, and then you just do it. And again, when we accept something, even if we don't like it, it flows much faster and with much more ease. And to me, also under acceptance comes to with an understanding. So when we can understand about our human experience, And the final one, somebody said, how do you sit with the feeling and not fear it? And that's when, for me, having a deeper understanding of anxiety, that understanding that it's not permanent. It's harmless. It can be really uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. So if I'm going to sit with something, but I thought it was really scary and I didn't know when it was going to last and I thought it would last forever, that'd make it really tough. But also, I guess you don't have to just sit here with it. You don't have to just sit. You are free to do anything. So if you are experiencing anxiety and you know exactly what it is, you just know you're feeling shaken up. You're feeling that swirling kind of frantic thoughts and the feelings that come with it because of maybe fight or flight. When we have those anxious thoughts, it can send the message to our brain that we're in danger and the stress response can start. So maybe our heart's beating fast, we're getting nauseous, any of those physical symptoms, and we can understand that it's a stress response. We're not really having a heart attack. So what makes it easier to tolerate is when you have an understanding. And then you also understand that, again, you're never stuck. And you don't have to add on to it with that second fear or add on to it with your thinking. You can kind of ride the wave. So yeah, it might look like you sit there because you're in the movies or you're on a date or you're on an airplane. And the best thing it looks like is just to sit there, not getting caught up in your thoughts, letting them flow. Because when we just set it down, if we're feeling anxious, it's like we're shaking up this swirling mass of negative thinking. But when we just set it down, it settles. So with anxiety, there's always less for us to do. And what we're looking for appears automatically when our mind clears. And that said, your wisdom, you might not add on to it with your thinking, and you might be guided to get up and get a snack, get a drink of water, call your mom or call your best friend and just chat. Just say, tell me about the World Cup. You might be inspired to just scroll on your phone, watch YouTube, watch TikTok, and know that when you get a little bit present, you're going to feel better. You're not like distracting yourself in a bad way, but you know that you feel better when you get present. And then you let that fear kind of float on by. And it's when you can understand that fear is just letting us know what train of thought we're on and that it's not headed anywhere good. It's not telling us about our reality or our capability or our future or anything. It's just saying this train of thought isn't headed anywhere good. So how I sit with the fear, I'm trying to think, when have I felt fear? I mean, I think mainly sometimes for me, I just will like allow feeling uncomfortable to be there because I've seen it again and again and again that I'm never stuck feeling uncomfortable and that it's much more tolerable if I don't freak out. And so I'm okay with feeling uncomfortable. Yeah, sure, of course, I'd always like to kind of feel present and easy and happy and whatever, neutral. But how I sit with it is just because of the understanding that I have. And when I've had morning anxiety, as I said, I think it showed up like this like last year, a little bit, just I felt kind of trapped driving in the morning. I was more curious, oh, it's here. But I knew I didn't need to analyze. I didn't need to like solve it. I allowed for that reflection and I knew that I'm always going to feel better when my mind is a little bit more settled and I can just let go of that thought. So I hope this was helpful. There was a lot in it. It was kind of a ramble discussion, but I hope you had an insight in there. And if not, that's totally okay. You don't need to walk away being like, okay, here's what I'm going to say about morning anxiety. If you got a feeling, then you got it. And I hope the feeling might be a little bit more easy, a little bit more hopeful. And that's it. So again, I'm Lily Seiss. I'm an anxiety coach and a 3 principles practitioner. I help people find peace from anxiety and panic and OCD. So feel free to check out any of the offerings that I have or email me.